Welcome back, and we are on to some relationship discussion. And this morning we will be talking about how to maintain an intimate relationship with your partner. And joining us on that discussion is relationship expert Toju Oluwatoyibo. She deploys her teaching gifts as a relationship mentor, speaker, and an inspiring and empowering relationships and marriages. Welcome to the show this morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
Intimacy, that's a very, very, very critical element in every relationship. So first of all, enlighten us on what intimacy is, because a lot of people mistake it for sex or romance. So tell us, what is intimacy?
Yeah, so I agree that sex and romance is definitely a part of it, but I think the best definition that has stuck for me is what my husband usually says, and it's intimacy. Intimacy. So it's not so much about the activities you're doing, but that you're actually spending time to know each other, become like each other. So the conversation we were having before about a man not caring for his wife or loving his wife, that wouldn't happen without intimacy, where I get to really know you, really know what you're about, and become more like you. Not necessarily become the same as you, but get to know who you really are so I can serve you better.
Because that is something my husband and I argue about mostly, because it's always like, sometimes you have to mirror the things that I do. And I'm like, no, I'm not you and you're not me. We can't do the same things. And so you made it a little more clearer now by saying that, see the thing and so that I can serve you better.
But there's sometimes, just because he likes it or she likes it, you just do it. Sometimes.
Now let's talk about the different kinds of intimacy.
Okay, so for me, I think, like I said earlier, it's bonding, spending time together first. And we need to be intentional, and in the lockdown now, be creative about it. But I think that intentionality, where you might even have to fix a time to spend together. So for example, between 7 and 9, my husband and I are locked down, watching series, catching up on movies. And that helps us. And we put the phones away, because these days, a lot of people are more intimate with their phones. Even when you're together, you're flicking. And then there's the pressure of social media, because you're seeing people that are doing things you can't even afford to do at this time, or you're not just disposed to at this time. And then the pressure starts coming in. You start attacking your spouse for something that is not even an issue before. So I think the intentionality about fixing the time is important. Throwing in surprises are good. Now that people are working from home, I thought it was good, but sometimes it can be bad, because now there's no 5 p.m., there's no 7 p.m., there's
and
no
it's causing
10
a lot
p.m.
of friction as well in a lot of marriages.
So you need to throw in surprises here and there. Coming from town suddenly, don't tell her or him you're coming. If you're married, Sha, because that's how I had my second child, because my husband suddenly came back, and then 9 months later. But the surprises are good. I think it's nice to recreate moments. So you can have a film reel or a photo reel of things that have happened in the past and put it together. I like to play with my husband. What's the first? So what's the first time you gave me a gift? What was the first gift you gave me? When was our first date? Going down memory lane like that usually helps to spice things up.
All right. Let's talk about spiritual intimacy, because I think that is a part of the relationship, or in a lot of marriages, that there's that gap, between both partners. So it's either the wife is, that, and then the husband. So there's usually that margin. How do you, meet each other halfway?
Wow. I didn't know we were going to go here, but now that we have, it's a whole topic. And like you were saying earlier, these are conversations you should actually have before you go in. And because generally speaking, I know it's not the case all the time, women seem to be a lot more emotional and fiery and all of that. And then when they get married, my husband is not leading me. He's not the prophet in the house.
And like they say, iron sharpened iron.
Yes, so you need that. But if you find you're in that situation where you're not on the same frequency, you can't afford to attack. You can't afford to say, aren't you the man? You should be leading me. You can't afford to do that. If he throws in a prayer, man of God, that rev was deep. So you encourage him, and then when you have testimonies from things you've prayed about, share with him to encourage him. And if it's the woman as well, do the same for her. But you need to try to make it a culture. My husband always says people who pray together can hardly fight themselves. Because if you're spending so much time in prayer and love with the person, it just kind of fizzles away. And one of the things I actually wanted to say, that the spice relationships need is the spice of prayer to prepare you.
The enemy.
Yeah, even you yourself. There's some things you are not doing right in the relationship. There's some character traits, behavior, things your spouse has been trying to correct you in or over for a long time. And when you're not hearing word again, they need to report to you to higher authority, to higher authorities to deal with the issue. So I think that spiritual intimacy is very important because we're more spirit beings than this physical flesh.
Now, physical intimacy is also very important. Like you said, we are mostly, taken distracted by, with work, social media. How could we also close that gap? How do we, deal with that lack of physical intimacy in a relationship?
Especially, my heart goes out to people who are single, especially at this time. I imagine that it's not very easy because you have to social distance. You can't just go in and visit the person and all of that. So let me talk about married people first. Sex will always be important. God help us. Because for a lot of women, we're not that inclined all the time, but we need to learn it. We need to grow in it. They need it. It's not just they want. They need it. So it's not a demon you're going to pray away anytime soon. So you need to try and find things that work for you to ease into it, whatever it is you want to do, lubes, talking, foreplay, whatever it is. But it's very important, and it helps. It's like a thermostat, the whole thermometer thing. If sex is going well, other things will generally go well if you're doing it right. Because if you're having sex, it means you're close to each other. And then if it's not going well, it might set up a lot of other things wrong in the marriage.
But what if both couples are not on the same frequency when it comes to, for me, intimacy could be different. For me to be able to plug into that emotional space with my partner, I need him to be spiritually inclined with me. But for him, he has to be, sexually inclined. So how do we, deal with that?
Okay, so many things to say, but let me address this from this angle. I don't love my husband because.
Okay.
I shouldn't love my wife because.
Okay.
I love you because I have decided to love you. Right?
Regardless.
Yes, regardless. So while we are building on meeting each other halfway or becoming more like each other, this is what you need at this time, so I'm going to give it to you. Then we have conversations. And when we have conversations, you need to talk in the way your spouse understands and your spouse relates, not in the way you understand and you want to be spoken to. Because he's not going to hear it or she's not going to hear it because you're not talking to them, you're talking to yourself.
Okay.
You're trying to bring out your desires, but you're not channeling it in a way that they want to be communicated with. So love them, just love them because you have decided to. Then at a good time, you bring up the conversation in a way they want to be heard. And then sometimes some things just take time.
Approach, if I hear you clearly, approach is, one way you can, effectively communicate with your partner.
Absolutely.
Talking about emotional intimacy, a lot of men do not plug into that.
Oh, this matters. This matters. Right.
They can't relate with it, so the lady is, emotional. We are the softer beings, like they say. Yeah, so we just generally, are emotional beings. But the man, how do you communicate that, part of, how do you close that gap? How do you mend that intimate, that emotional, gap in that relationship quickly?
Unfortunately, I feel it's not that they don't care or they don't know how to be emotional.
Okay.
I think they've just grown up being exposed to a certain kind of father, man figure.
Environment.
So it's not that he doesn't even love you or he doesn't care about you. He might just feel like he's doing his best way in paying school fees. And,
because that's how best he knows how to.
So you need to understand where he's coming from initially. And then you might need to get a third party in at some point if you're talking isn't helping.
All right. Thank you so much, Toju. I'm sure that a lot of people have learned from this conversation. It continues on social media. Whatever questions you have for Toju, please reach out to us on all our social media platforms at TVC Connect. Thank you so much, Toju. This has been an insightful conversation. And because we've taken so much from you, we are going to replenish you. Exactly. So let's take you to the kitchen. And Chef Blossom has something for you. So please.
All righty.